The Watchers, the brand new folk horror movie. In this video we will be diving into its deeper themes and symbolism. We'll be thinking about the idea of seeing and being seen. We'll be thinking about the fae creatures and the relationship between heaven and earth. Oh, and what's with the parrot? Let's find out. One of the challenges with telling a folk horror story in the modern day is that you need to find a way of closing off all the escape routes. If you want to trap your protagonist in an Irish forest, you'll need her car to break down and disappear. You'll need to remove all means of communication with the outside world, including phone signals and internet access. And you'll need to provide a story reason as to why she can't just walk out of the forest. And that's what happens. The opening act is about peeling back those layers of modern technology and comfort until we are left with a group of 4 vulnerable humans fighting for survival and escape. We're going to get into spoiler territory. We meet our protagonist, Mina, working at a pet shop. Creatures from the lower orders of creation are being kept and observed inside glass boxes. And that foreshadows what comes later, because when her car breaks down in the heart of the forest, Mina finds herself being whisked by the 3 other humans into a giant glass box, to be observed by a higher level of creation, fae creatures known as the Watchers. So that's interesting. Now she's the one inside a glass box. Now, a harmonious relationship involves both seeing and being seen, but this story explores the loss and confusion of that balance. The building is called the Coop. For the most part, it keeps the 4 humans safe in the woods, but it also puts them on display to the Watchers. At night, its glass wall becomes a mirror for those on the inside, but it remains a window for those on the outside. This gives it a voyeuristic quality. The Watchers can look in and observe, but the humans can't see the Watchers. It's a one-way relationship, reflecting a sense of disconnection from the rest of creation. This is also echoed by the awful reality TV show, played on repeat to pass the time inside the Coop. It's called Lair of Love, an obvious fictional stand-in for Love Island.
I was watching Love Island UK as I was writing the script, and just felt there was kind of like an uncanny moment for me where I felt how much this experience of what I was doing of like voyeuristically watching through a box every single day of my life and being so invested in these characters was so related to what was happening to our 4 characters in the Coop.
So why are the Watchers watching? Well, they are changelings, or fairies, shape-shifting fae creatures of the night, and they are learning to mimic the humans. They want to escape the forest and be free, like the humans. As the story develops, we learn that it hasn't always been this way. There used to be harmony between fairies and humans, a union between the heavenly and the earthly. But that union became corrupted, in part because the fairies mated with the humans, producing offspring called halflings. Unlike regular fairies, the halflings were able to wander in daylight. They became despised and rejected. Now, this reminds me of what we see in the Bible. In Genesis 6, we read of creation descending deeper and deeper into darkness, and in particular we are told about a group of apparently supernatural beings called the sons of God. Not the Son of God, Jesus. These are different. These are lowercase s sons of God. We don't know much about them, but they seem to be part of the heavenly host. And in Genesis 6, we read that they mated at one point with the daughters of humans to produce giant beings called Nephilim. It's one of many examples in Genesis of a fracturing of that union between heaven and earth. So it's interesting that The Watchers echoes something of this. It's playing with these ideas of the union being fractured. Now, the movie's director, Ishana Night Shyamalan, is a fan of the plot twist, much like her father. It's probably what drew them to this story. And the twist in this film is that Madeline is actually a watcher, known as the Daywalker, who is very good at imitating human beings. She was captured by Professor Rory Kilmartin, the architect of the coop, and she eventually overpowered him. So she's been posing as a human being for the whole film, and then towards the end, Mina uncovers the truth, and in a climactic final showdown, Mina is powerless against her, the Daywalker. But Mina realises that some degree of peace may be achieved if they recognise their shared humanity. The Daywalker is a halfling, part human, part fairy, and therefore hatred towards humans isn't the answer. The Daywalker is part human herself. This is framed as an allegory for Mina's own internal struggle, coming to terms with her regret at being responsible for her mother's death. The idea is that we all have a part of ourselves that we don't like, and we need to learn to live with that. And if the Daywalker just flies off and finds some other halflings, she'll realise that she's not alone. So the movie aims at a moment of solidarity between Mina and the Daywalker, the halfling, which doesn't really satisfy, and maybe it's not meant to. The scene I found to be more poignant is after that, the scene with Mina reconnecting with her sister, her identical twin sister, at the end of the film. There we see proper forgiveness at work. True freedom lies not in being able to forgive ourselves, but in recognising that we need someone else to forgive us. Now, in ancient cosmology, space and time were seen as these two opposing forces. When space dominates, things are ordered, stable, and familiar. There is consistency at the cost of completeness. When time dominates, things are confused and changing in a cyclical manner. There is completeness at the cost of consistency. And we see this in the film. In the daytime, space dominates. Humans dominate. They are able to walk through the forest in relative safety. The chaotic overturning forces, the Watchers, are kept at bay in underground, snake-like, worm-like tunnels. But at night, the Watchers emerge from those tunnels, and they sweep through the forest in search of humans. If they find you, they will drag you down into the murky depths of their tunnels. So they act as this cyclical overturning force of time, which is more dominant at night. So at night, the humans are confined to the cubic space of the coop. Squares and cubes are symbols of space. During the day, their range expands a little bit. They are able to walk up to half a day's distance from the coop, because beyond that boundary, there's no chance of returning to the coop before nightfall. So during the day, the human habitat expands to a circular patch of the forest, representing the furthest they can go before falling prey to the forces of time. It's a circular boundary, and that's interesting because the circle is a symbol of time, reflecting its cyclical, overturning nature. So there's this tug of war between space dominating during the day in the film, and time dominating at night. As the story progresses into winter, the dominance of time grows stronger as the nights get longer and colder. This pushes our characters to their limits. As is often the way in horror films, things have to get worse before they can get better. And when it looks as though all is lost, with the Watchers about to break into the coop and destroy the final remnant of space, the humans discover the Professor's underground laboratory beneath the coop. They discover a map leading to a river beyond the forest, their way out. And this is where the Parrot comes in. Just after we read about the Nephilim in Genesis 6, we have the account of Noah and the flood. You might know that towards the end of the flood story, Noah is aboard the ark. The cyclical forces of time have dominated for a while, with the floodwaters swirling around the ark, and Noah sends out 2 birds in search of any sign that stable space, i.e. dry land, might be returning. And this is where it gets fascinating. First, Noah sends out a raven, a non-kosher bird according to the Jewish food laws, which were to come later, and the raven returns with nothing. But then Noah sends out a dove, a kosher bird, and it returns with an olive leaf, a sign of dry land. So the raven, with its strange flesh, more aligned to the overturning forces of time, doesn't find dry land. But the bird with familiar flesh, the dove, it does find dry land. Why is this relevant? Well, the Watchers is an inversion of the Noah story. Noah was stuck on the water, searching for dry land, But in The Watchers, the humans are stuck in the forest, searching for the water beyond the forest. And at the end of the film, Mina sends out the pet parrot, a golden parakeet, a non-kosher bird, and it leads them to the river, to the water, their way out. Noah finds dry land by sending out a kosher bird, a dove. Mina finds water by sending out a non-kosher bird, a parrot. Fascinating inversion. The parrot also represents something of the relationship between heaven and earth I was talking about earlier. It is a flying creature from the first heaven, the sky. But for the most part, it's kept in a cage, anchored to the earth. Mina gives it the name Darwin, which obviously gets us thinking about Charles Darwin, evolution, survival of the fittest, the way of nature, the way of the earth. But its golden colour gives it a more heavenly quality. It is the most colourful thing in the story. It's a golden parakeet.
Who is your favourite character and why is it the parrot?
I really appreciate it when people specify that the parrot is their favourite character. It's hard to give personality to a little bird that doesn't really do anything, you know? He becomes like just a symbol for their kind of humanity, and he's the only trace of colour in a book where everything feels so black and white.
So it kind of embodies both the heavenly and the earthly in itself. And it's interesting that the parrot is, in fact, the reason that Mina ends up in the forest in the first place. She's on her way to deliver it to a zoo in Belfast when her car breaks down. So there's something in that. The parrot is the heavenly symbol that calls Mina into the wilderness, but also eventually out of the wilderness. So there we go. The Watchers. My name is Thomas Thorogood. I get into the deeper meaning of movies. Do subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, it's deeper than you think.